Hello, you guys. Here to record another video, and I'm gonna make this about my history with the most recent stalker, and some of it will be repetitious, but I think very interesting to you because it may match your experiences. So hold on a second while I get my notes set up so I can read off the notes and make a somewhat effective video. Hopefully, you find it helpful and enlightening. And yeah, I'm not going to say anything else other than that. Aloha. I'm going to try and do the story of my brief relationship and long stalking, no pun intended, with this person. And I'm going to try to keep it in non psychological terms as much as possible and break it down into bullet points because that's how I wrote the notes. So let's get going. First, I want to let you know that this type of person thrives on what's some people call an energy transfer. I prefer to call it personality swapping. They want to offload their problems onto you. So what they want to do is they want to turn you into them so that people think you're crazy and that they can become all the best qualities of you. So basically they become you and you become them. So this is why a lot of this type of person, narcissists, attack people on the spectrum, because people on the spectrum tend to be a little socially awkward, oblivious to what the person is doing, and a little naive. And I do have my own issues. I had a seemingly on the surface very calm upbringing, but actually beneath the surface very difficult one. And I'm not claiming to be a saint in this situation. I'm just noting that this person eventually ended up trying to kill me. And getting his friends to try and kill me. So I want you to know how dangerous these people are. And the way that they keep out of trouble is once they've transferred all of their issues onto you and brought out the worst in your personality, they will they will they will tell everybody that everything you're doing is projection. So let's get started. A neighbor introduced me to this person and thought that his and my interests would be similar and that we would get along. I had no idea that he was gay too. So I just thought he was some dude with a garden. And that's what I was working on and had been a long dream of mine. And I'd even made many posts on Facebook about it, which is where I think he got all of his information about me. Because when she took me over there, he seemed like the ideal person for me. He was interested in gardening, although he didn't seem to care about native plants at all. Although in other ways he was very good at it, and or seemingly very good at it. I later learned that his entire personality, everything about him, was a total facade and totally fake, as supported by the fact that he lied about just about everything, including sleeping with tons of people while we were together, which he tried to cover up by asking for an open relationship. But he didn't say anything about lying, constantly sleeping around, sex addictions, drug addictions, humiliation, and sabotage, which is what he'd done apparently to many, many other people, not just on the island, but in other places too. So hold on, because I'll be pausing a lot. So just to illustrate to you guys, here's a picture of a photo of me at the height of my narcissistic abuse. You can see what I look like and why he probably said, "I'm not attracted to you anymore," although that was just an excuse to further triangulate, which is when you use other people to insult you and turn you into the bad guy when they're actually the one insulting you behind your back. So hold on. Again, let me get rid of the photo. So, okay, so let's move on to my notes. he would play mean practical jokes on me. So let me go into the history first. So the friend brought me over to his garden. We would hang out, and he was immediately right into the sex. He wanted it right away, and that was a mistake, because I had no idea what kind of a person he was, and I had no idea he was trying to get me involved with him so that I would stay despite some really bad mistreatment. He seemed really cool at first. They in the psychological world, they call this love bombing. He would make meals, he would want to watch movies and all this kind of stuff. The only problem was is that I kind of knew something was up because I've been surrounded by narcissists my whole life. I've been screwed over by narcissistic business partners badly. I've built business empires for many people. I've been in relationships with a few of these people, and although I didn't know anything about narcissism and codependency, or people on the spectrum versus sociopaths, I did have some idea of a little bit of it. And so right away I knew something was up because he would never want me to go home. He would keep me there for hours. He would never come over. He only wanted to hang at his place. He wouldn't even want to walk through my yard or anything, only to hoover me. And my life started going downhill right away because I was neglecting my friends. I was neglecting the work that I wanted to do, and he was spending hours studying me, and I didn't know that. I thought he just was really into me and wanted me around. But I noticed that he would never let me speak or get a word in edgewise in conversations. So he would constantly talk, and he would talk about the craziest shit. And I would go home and I would shake my head like, does he really know what he's talking about? Because all of it was stuff that I didn't really know about. Like, he would talk about the occult and stuff like that, and that was not interesting to me at the time. I've learned a bit about it just to learn what he was talking about, and because of my own interests, kind of aligned with that in spirituality and religion. So, boy, I'm trying to breathe. This is making me choked up that I can't breathe. It's so giving me a huge anxiety attack. So I may be pausing the video a lot. So he would keep me around through all this love bombing type stuff, and and he would use this Pavlovian kind of effect where he would make food and he wouldn't want me to bring food over. He never liked my food. So I would bring things over and he'd just not want it. So if I didn't bring over food and water, I didn't get food and water, but he would insist that I be there for hours. He wanted to be massaged for hours. He wouldn't reciprocate at all. He wanted to have, pleasure. He would want to have sexual pleasure, but he would never want to return it. And I was always left unsatisfied and unhappy with the experience. And I found it to be ultimately very irritating. But they have this way of making you forget all the bad parts about all the crap they did to you, and just remembering the good parts. So you'll keep going back. That's what hoovering is. You'll keep going back to them because they'll keep coming around and getting in your face and wanting you to date them again. And they'll even deliberately misinterpret their unwelcomeness as being an invitation to come around. That's how Donald Trump works too, right? So let's go on. So I left him not too long after that. I think it was a few weeks. And I didn't really look back. But then he kept hoovering me over and over. He'd come over and grab me by the crotch and, all this other stuff. And sometimes I would listen to my intuition and I wouldn't go over. Sometimes I would. But then after one day, he had a truck back then, and I don't think he has a vehicle now. But he was driving home, and I wondered how he had been able to get something to smoke, if you know what I mean, because he apparently didn't have any, and all of a sudden he did. And so I asked him, and he said, "Oh, I gave this hitchhiker a ride, and he gave me this." And I said, and I just don't know why I said this, but right in my brain popped in, he had sex with this dude. Something told me. I don't know what it was. Something about the car, maybe. And I said, "Oh, and you gave him a hand job." And suddenly he just went dead silent and said nothing almost for the rest of the ride. And I just remember that being an extremely uncomfortable evening after that. One of the things I learned is just you never confront these people. You'll never get the truth. And if you don't get the truth, you'll get such an extreme rageful response that you'll regret it. So it's better to just walk away from an argument, and better yet, just walk away from them. And I'm probably repeating advice from multiple other YouTubers who discuss this, but I'll try and post links to some of these people in the description if I can remember it, because these people deserve a lot of credit for teaching me a lot about him and about myself. And I've also heard that to this day, he still wants like to be lovers or work together or something, even after attacking me. It's made me so paranoid that I carry around at least a knife with me at all times. After being stabbed in the face with a piece of plastic, that is. So let's go on. And that shows you how cowardly they are too, right? You know, you might be there with fists to defend yourself, but they'll bring a weapon like a knife or a gun or something. So after this, after I'd left him at one point, I tried online dating because I didn't have a vehicle and I was limited to my house. And I noticed that people would disappear. And this was, I'd gotten really out of shape and stuff. And so I was kind of pursuing people that probably more matched my vibe then. And just trying to have some fun. And they would either suddenly get nasty to me, or they would just disappear and ghost me for no reason after having a good conversation. And eventually I realized he was probably tracking my profile on Grindr and telling people not to date me, that I was, insane or something. And he was driving me insane, truly. I didn't know that I might possibly be on the spectrum. I'm still undergoing the diagnosis, so I don't know yet, but I strongly suspect it's true. So I started having meltdowns, and to this day, I'm fairly sure that he drugged me at least once, because I noticed that the more time I spent over there, the more insane I would feel when I was coming home. And it seemed a bit beyond just a reaction of, oh, what am I doing going over to this toxic person? No, this was a level beyond that. And it got me in a lot of trouble. And eventually, I believe he and his people that he lied about me to got me arrested. And I ended up in jail for a month, where I almost got killed. So let's just say that there were basically at least 4 or 5 murder attempts on my life after this. I noticed that after one person started getting weird for no reason, I started telling him about my experience and what a serial cheater my ex was, and that he lived next door. And then all of a sudden, I got blocked. And then I noticed that things got even more crazy after that. And I started having cars following me, people following me, groups of people following me. I had people starting to call me a pedophile, and worse. And it got to the point where I was so reactive and confrontational towards any little thing that it just turned me into a monster, which is basically how his neighbors describe him. Now, keep in mind that I used to be a very successful business person, even though I was being scammed all the time and didn't know it. I had somebody scam me and leave me with a huge tax debt. And when I came to this island, I was basically homeless, and then I became more homeless and lived on the streets. I didn't have any kind of shelter. And then when I came here, I finally had a place, and I was working on restarting my business. I had some money to buy a brand new, awesome computer and build it up, build it myself, and then restart things. And then, boom, along comes this brief relationship and long stalking, and it left me devastated and set me back from 2018 or so, when I was swatted by the police viciously and they stood on my neck while I was saying I can't breathe and bashed my head into the pavement. I learned that this kind of treatment in relationships is illegal in the UK, and person can be at least sued, maybe jailed. It might be a crime. It might be a jailable offense in the UK. I don't know. I haven't researched that too deeply. But yeah, in the UK, you can prosecute people for this kind of treatment because it can kill people. And society over there has recognized that fact. So, sorry, I had to grab a drink of water. So after I left him, after treating him with pretty much unconditional love for a month, I didn't know this, but apparently he went traveling. I don't know, but it seems like overseas, maybe to another island somewhere else. And I don't know on whose dime he did that, because he was on disability despite having no seeming disabilities. Well, besides my own opinion that he's a socio/psychopath, and proved it with his actions. And as you can see in one of my shorts, I actually recorded part of the attack, and you can see it there. Let me move on to my next bullet point. By the way, it pisses me off when people take advantage of the disability system, because it seems that those of us who actually need it don't get the resources we need, because these assholes are sucking up all the resources so they can keep mistreating people and living their best life while you're down in the dirt, right? I'm probably stealing some of this wording from another YouTuber whose name escapes me at the moment. Now, around the time that I left him and had this online dating disaster, and right before I started getting better and realizing what had happened to me, and watching a lot of YouTube videos and reading some articles about this. Oh, by the way, my ability to read kind of went totally out the window because of this. And I used to read almost a book a day as a kid. I was quite the reader, and I could read music before I could read or write books. So I was considered to be in the gifted and talented education, which most of those people who are in the GATE program in California knew that most of those people were later diagnosed for as adults as undiagnosed, high-functioning, masking, autistic or ADHD people, which seems to be borne out by my experience as well. Also, if you notice that I sometimes have a very flat affect to my voice, I've learned that that's part of it. These people are not only are they taking advantage of the disability system, but they take advantage of their relatives too, because they're very good at schmoozing their family members into giving them lots of money, while those of us who are basically driven crazy by these people are given very few resources, because we end up melting down on our relatives. That's what happened to me, and I've heard that experience from many other people, both online and a few in person. So we have to work twice as hard for every penny we get, every resource we get. So let's move on. One of the things I noticed about him is that he was very hateful towards my spiritual practice, which is basically Nichiren Buddhism. And I would chant every day, and he despised it. But he would talk to me for hours about the occult and black magic. And I was very curious as to why somebody would brag about such a thing, right? Why would you brag about black magic? But since then, I've learned that people who study that also study some of the things that they practically tell you what to do, which is to actually do sabotage and harm to people. They teach you how to poison people. They teach you how to drive them crazy with psychological tricks. So this whole spell casting and all that kind of stuff really is just trickery, and that's something he studied. And later on, when I kept finding dirt in my drinking water and started getting sick and severe diarrhea and going nuts after drinking it, I'm pretty sure he was putting stuff in my water. So I begged my family for help with security, and they sent me a camera system, fortunately. And then for a while, such things stopped until the system didn't work anymore. And before I had the cameras, and other things started happening. And I noticed whenever my cameras weren't working, it was a pretty flaky system back then. Weird things would happen, like I would go out to use my boots in the garden, and both heels would be slashed, and water would come in, and so I had to get rid of boots. And if you've ever lived in this place before, you know that the rocks here are very sharp, and so you constantly need some kind of a very thick soled shoe if you really want to do serious work outdoors. So this really hindered me as well, which was his point. Everything he did was to hinder me, either hinder my transportation or my money or my relationships. Everything was sabotage, sabotage, sabotage. And I later found out he managed to slander me to a good portion of not just the gay community, but the whole island. The only thing that kept my hope going was that people mentioned in the YouTube videos about narcissism that these people, even though they're trying to swap their problems for your advantages, this ultimately fails because they're just putting on a veneer, they're just putting on a mask, they're just putting on a face, they're fake. And I don't mean a COVID mask, I mean, which I still wear in stores, sorry, and have never gotten it. But I mean like a psychological mask, faking your clothing, your personality, your mannerisms, your terms of speech, things from your spirituality, although they don't mention what they practice. Really, not really, not in reality, because everything about them is fake. You can count on 0% truth too. These people are just as bad as Donald Trump. They'll make up the most ridiculous excuses and stories you've ever heard. And like I said, every time I confronted it, it erupted into violent anger. So you can count on that. Just don't confront. In fact, just don't stick around, like I said before. And many other YouTubers too. But the thing that gave me hope, so I'm going to parrot some other things I heard, and this is what gave me hope. What the YouTubers said was that ultimately their attempt to swap your life with theirs ultimately fails. Their attempt to take over your personality and present themselves to the world as basically you. It's such a thin veneer that eventually people see through it, or they're ostracized. Excuse my gurgling stomach. I still have stomach issues from that time. Even though you'll become a total mess if you stick around, like I did. You'll have to spend a lot of time cleaning up. You'll have to spend time apologizing to people for your meltdowns, especially if you're on the spectrum or they've managed to saddle you with their addictions. Fortunately, I never got into meth, or something like it, which is what I'm fairly sure he was doing, based on his behavior after coming back from one of his mysterious trips with one of his mysterious friends who I'd never heard of before. And suddenly it was very important. He'd come back all giggly and insulting and all like energetic and very even more boring than usual. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around here. So anyway, the part that, again, to repeat, the part that gave me hope was that their attempt to swap your life with theirs ultimately fails, and they will end up in a pit of despair that they've lost another good person in their life, and you'll come back as a better person. And I started working out again. I started caring about my hygiene again. I started caring about the cleanliness of my place, although it's a mess right now, and that's why I have you on the green screen. But let's go on. So that gave me hope, knowing that when I come back, I'll hopefully be better than I was, or at least I'll be better than at the pit of despair that he put me in, he and his friends. But now at least I feel better than I ever had. And although I'm now 7 years older, I went from, well, 8 years actually. I went from 8 or 9 years. No, 7 years. I went from being 43 to 50 years old. I really enjoy this part of my life now. Yeah, I'm old as fuck, but at least I'm happier, and I have some hope for the future. And I'm pretty sure his life will keep descending into a pit because he passes himself off as a hard worker, and yet I have never seen him working ever, not in hours or days or weeks. I think he occasionally did some landscaping work for people, but I've never seen him work. And meanwhile, you're like the swan or the duck in the pond, as YouTubers and Buddhism says. You sail across the lake and people just see this serene bird, going by. But in reality, the legs are paddling furiously, below. And he's not like that. He's just lazy. He just collects money. And I'm pretty sure that he's not working because he's just out on the streets picking up guys, sleeping with people's husbands, or so I've heard. I don't know if that's true. And keep in mind, I don't know if any of this stuff is true, and I'm not pretending to be a saint myself, but if I ever dated a guy and it turned out he was married, which has happened before, I've stopped seeing him. Other people go farther and they'll go and see the wife or whatever, and they'll tell them what happened. If although that can be dangerous too, but make your own moral choice, what you think is right if this happens to you. Keep in mind that if you believe in karma, which to some degree most of us have to, right? Because if you do bad things to people, they tend to want to do bad things back to you, right? If you do bad things to society, society will want to do bad things back to you. That's why I'm not worried about Trump either, because yeah, he's going to do a lot of bad things, but he'll eventually pay. It's 2024. He's about to be president again. Sorry, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but yeah, anyway, so let's move on. I want to point out too about organized religion. I had somebody high up in the group I used to attend have me go back to this person repeatedly, and because I trusted this person more than my own intuition. Oh, hold on, let me fix my green screen. My eyes are blacking out. Okay, that's going to make my shirt a little more shimmery, but hopefully my eyes won't look like black pits into hell. So anyway, one of the things that happens with organized religion is that I feel like it attracts narcissists, and they like each other, so they'll put you in the arms of more narcissists, because being a leader of a religious group makes you look good to society. And once I realized how thin the veneer of friendship and love was with people, and I'm including Buddhism, not just Christianity in that, I'm including a lot of faiths. I've pretty much left organized religion behind. And he really kind of helped me destroy my own faith in my faith, and I actually destroyed my object of devotion in this faith, which is the only real cardinal sin in this group. And I did it because I was so angry. I was angry at not really him, but I was angry at the universe for putting me into this position of needing so much help and yet nobody wanting to help me because my meltdowns were so bad. but also because a lot of those people didn't really have my best interests at heart to begin with. Their friendship was only skin deep, and that included a lot of community leaders. And that lost me even more friends because I found myself calling them out online. And nothing will make you an enemy of society faster than calling out leaders sometimes, as anybody who's ever been politically involved knows, right? I had to pause the camera again there for a moment because I'm having difficulties with the recording software, and I'm determined to edit this video as minimally as possible. I'm just going to cut out some of the water gurgling and weird noises. Hold on. Oh, other things that happened were that there were signs that my house was broken into. That people had gone through my passwords. People had gone through my paperwork. Um, and then that's when the online spying really ramped up. And to this day, there's a few passwords that I'm sure are still compromised because weird things are still going on with my privacy. And I highly recommend that if you've been involved with people like this, that you get your online privacy check. And there are services like I'm just recommending my personal experiences. Like with Aura is a good one. I liked that one. Um, Malwarebytes is good for your computer. I've heard some people like Bitdefender. And also be very wary of saving your passwords in any kind of a keychain, as it's known on Macs, or a Windows password manager. Be very careful about that. I noticed over the years that he started marrying me. I noticed that he started getting into archery. I noticed that he seemed to be hanging out with people with interests similar to me or something. It was weird. Um, I noticed things from my Amazon wish list that he suddenly owned, and because he was getting all this government money, he was able to afford that. I'm not against people getting money for the government for disability or unemployment or whatever. I'm just against people doing very large scams to do it. The last time he hoovered me and I went over there, I noticed that all the things that I was interested in seemed to have disappeared from his life. So that was kind of odd. Like the garden seemed kind of neglected. It seemed like his chicken coop was mostly empty now. And I noticed that it became more transparent that a lot of the things that he seemed to like were just copies of stuff I'd posted on Facebook before. He even had my old haircut. Um, so I started growing out my hair because I didn't want people to confuse us for each other, even though we look very different. The last time we got together too, he did another what people in certain circles call humiliation rituals, which is where they put you in humiliating situations just to watch you squirm. And he did that with his ex. He would um, have me come by when his ex would come by, or he would call his ex to show up when I was there. And the ex would always look at me like I was, made of shit and smelled like shit or looked like shit or something. And this is called triangulation. They that's what I was mentioning before about how they insult you to other people in front of you. And I noticed that despite him describing how crazy his ex was, that he seemed like a really nice guy, actually. A tall dude, a lot younger than me, um, or younger than me, about his, more like towards his age. And yeah, let's move on to the next bullet point. I want to refute to the idea that narcissists can't change. I think that some of them can, and they will. But they may only change after a severe setback happens in their life. Like, for him, I imagine that assault and battery, or assault, is a fairly serious thing. So I've heard that he really regrets what he did to me, and I hope he does. I also regret the person that I became, and to anybody who suffered from the person that I became, I apologize too. And I try to whenever it happens, although I've been caught off guard a few times. I still try to do that. And because I think I'm basically a good person, I'm definitely nowhere near perfect, but I'm try to do the best I can, you know? And I think it's proven by the quality of friends I have in my life now. I've had to cut off a good portion of my family, almost all of them. And I've had to cut off a lot of friends out of my life because I discovered that they share a lot of, they may not be also narcissists, but they definitely share a lot of those qualities. And I just find the behavior and their mistreatment of me to be so toxic that I just can't be around it anymore. So, to summarize that bullet point, I'd be like, don't be afraid to cut people off, and don't argue with people. Try not to swear at them. Try not to melt down as I did. Try to just stop talking to them. It's called gray rock. You put up a brick wall, but you do it silently, and then you just disappear behind it. So you can either just stop responding to texts and phone calls, and then you can put them on your block list so that they don't appear on your list of messages or in your main voicemail box, and you won't be triggered by anything from them until you ever do feel like talking to them again. At first, you may be tempted to let these people back into your life or regret losing all these people in your life, but I promise you that the newest people that you put into your life as replacements for these will be much higher quality, and you'll be much happier and happier that you did so. Let me apologize again for all my gurgling. I don't know how to not do that. I'm not an actor, so I don't know how to just keep speaking without clearing my throat and crap. And I hate it when people do that on videos. Although none of my friends, close friends, liked him, other people who didn't really know me that well thought that we could be like a power couple. Like we were both, seemed very motivated and driven and had similar interests and could really work together. But because his side was fake, because he never grew up, I don't think that would have been ever really possible. If you get involved with someone like this, you'll miss the relationship, but like I said before, you'll miss the good parts and you'll forget how horrible the bad parts were. Part of the immaturity on his part was probably that he had some serious childhood with a dad who was probably a narcissist and maybe even a rapist, a grapist. Is that what you're supposed to say on YouTube? He was apparently crushed by a truck and hit over the head with a 2x4. Had to go to jail and other stuff too. So I'm sure there's something there, but it just seems like his behavior was totally functional, except for the fact that he was horribly abusive in a very invisible way. Hi, girl. My cat wants attention. Can you hear her? So, I have this theory that gay people are hit in the head because people are upset by the fact that we don't conform to societal standards, and they want to bring us down to their level. And I think that people deliberately hit us in the head, and I've seen that borne out over and over again. I've had boyfriends who were hit over the head with metal pipes or 2x4s or whatever. I've a lot of boyfriends who were seriously abused, and some who were crippled. And I'm partially crippled now too, because I had one bad knee, but now I have two worse knees due to having danced out of the way of one of his possibly friends, meth head dude who tried to run me over. one of the other things he used to do was ghost me all the time. Like, and it turned me into that kind of a character too for a while. You know, he'd want me to come over like the next day or want me to come over for stuff, and he wouldn't be there, or want me to stop by or something, and his house would be dark and silent and clearly empty, and then he would say, "Oh yeah, I was sleeping." I'm like, not with me yelling out hello, and you living with dogs and stuff. No way were you home. See, they don't. This is another point from copied from another YouTuber, but instead of cooperating with you and working together as a couple, they want to compete with you all the time. So they'll use any kind of a psychological trick or anything to compete with you. For example, when I first went back to online dating, besides mentioning the archery and other hobbies that he copied, he I noticed that his photos were I had posted him a photo of myself where I manipulated my tank top to look like an alien outfit. It was the only part of the photo that I had AI alter. The rest of it was real. But I noticed that later on, when I saw a profile that looked like his, and it was fairly nearby, but it didn't seem to be him. So I thought, okay, this guy looks somewhat interesting. I'll click on his thing. So I clicked on his thing, sent me photos, and it was his face, but it was a bunch of photos that looked like some other situation. Like one was a nude, and his junk looked more like mine, except magnified. And for example, he's circumcised, and if I remember right, because my memory is so screwed up by whatever he gave me or for whatever reason, that I remember him being circumcised and I'm not, and his junk in the photograph was uncircumcised, so that ought to tell you something right there. But some of them actually look like some part of the photo was altered or something weird. There was just something weird and fake about it. So I sent him whoever it was. I said, "You look like somebody I know," and I sent a nude of him, and immediately I was blocked, and then I knew it was him. And yeah, so I'd already had him blocked and stuff. After I confronted him, I just blocked his number from my phone, and I didn't see him online on that site anymore. And frankly, I wasn't interested in any other social media to do with him, so I haven't checked. So anyway, you may be wondering how he could possibly keep track of me and enough to do some of the stuff, but like I said, when I found that people had probably broken into my place and stolen some of my passwords, I noticed that a lot of this stuff seemed to happen if I had location services turned on. So you might want to switch that off on your phone, so you can avoid being hit with fake profiles, because I was hit with a bunch of fake profiles that I'm fairly sure were AI generated or other people. In fact, I checked one of the photos, and one definitely was AI generated according to the website that checks for that. This is around the same time that I found my underwear taken off my laundry line and left out in the street, where I had to cut some trees off of a downed, or cut some trees off of a power line, off of a telephone line, I mean. So I have to look through my notes to finish this video. So in conclusion, I wanted to offer another line stolen from another YouTuber, which is, you need to forgive yourself after this. You need to forgive yourself for the person you became in this relationship. And this is especially important if you're on the spectrum, which you may be if you got involved with one of these people. As I said, they target the vulnerable and the broken or damaged people. And many of the things that you present maybe aspects that they share. And so people tend to mistake people on the spectrum for narcissists because we have various things like we seem to display no empathy when we're listening to people. And that's because, and I'm going to include myself in this group for now until I receive a formal diagnosis. And that is that, like, we seem to not care about what they're saying because we're trying to listen and we can't process the idea of talking at the same time as listening a lot of the time. So one of the things I want to mention is that, you know, don't worry about your presentation of your personality if you can't come off as quote unquote normal. Don't worry about it, and don't let self-consciousness and a lack of confidence make you hole up in your house as I did. Well, COVID didn't help. You know, that disaster is pretty bad, but don't let them make you lose confidence in yourself or your abilities. Just try to double down on the person that you were before, and see if it makes you change your life direction. Maybe you'll find maybe you've lost your job because of this abuse, and you need to find a new one. Maybe nobody believed in you. Maybe your family didn't believe how bad it was, and they didn't help you, and so you further lost your confidence. But I have to say that losing confidence in yourself will cause you to miss out on a lot of things in your life, and I certainly have, and I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to wish that on anyone, except, to be honest, maybe him, but not really. I mean, I just, as long as he's happy, then he's not bothering me. So I actually want him to be happy too. But yeah, I just want to wrap up this video by saying that, and aloha, Adam Westish out.